we worked already on your fear of exam. Like you had a lot of fear around exams, a lot of fear of not being enough, not being smart enough.
And lo and behold, I took my written exam and failed it.
You find yourself depressed. You go and investigate what's the thought that causes that feeling. You find the thought, and what do you do next? I I'm here today with Olivia again. I'm very excited. We had a little break after our last coaching session, and I'm super excited to have her back again. I'm very curious what she comes up with. And I hope everyone who is watching can get a lot out of this video too. And now, Olivia, my time is all yours. So happy to see you again. How are you?
Oh, I am well. Thank you, Monica. And I'm so happy to see you again. It has been a while since our last coaching session. And so much has happened. So I'm happy to be here. Hello to your audience as well. Yeah, so as you know, I'm studying RTT. And you and I actually had a while back a session about my fear of taking exams.
Mhm.
And then we kind of like uncovered what was behind that. And lo and behold, I took my written exam and failed it. And so what was interesting though is that there was actually a very significant shift that occurred that I probably wouldn't have been aware of had I not failed. One of the significant things that happened was I didn't like initially have this visceral reaction to it, like, oh my God, I didn't become emotional and cry right away. I just sat with it and I said, okay. And then the next thing was, I said, well, this is not descriptive of who I am. So in the past, I would have had that very harsh, critical voice that said, of course you fail. Like, really? Do we have to go through this again? You know, you're not good at taking exams. You know, that you will always have difficulties. But this time the voice was more like, huh, that's interesting that you failed. Okay, let's sit with that for a while. And because initially I didn't really look further into why I failed, I sat with it for a little bit. It felt uncomfortable. And then I said, you know what? Let me just remove myself. The next day, I had an avalanche of emotions. And it was like my little girl came back up again and said, oh my God, this is taking us back again to when we couldn't pass our test and it made us feel stupid and unintelligent. And, you're just not capable or able to really understand the material, to comprehend the material, to apply it. So I started going down that rabbit hole. And what I allowed myself to do in that moment, which is unprecedented, I allowed myself to actually feel the feelings and then just go through it and be with it. And I told my little girl, okay, we're going to take the day and we're just going to allow ourselves to just express however we feel, do whatever we want to make this okay in that moment. And the one stipulation I had was we can do anything and everything except harm ourselves or harm anybody else. And then also, this is the only time we will allow for these feelings to come up because I didn't want to stay in them. And I explained to my little girl, like, it's not healthy to just stay in it. We need to find a way to learn from it. So after I had my temper tantrum and I cried, bawled my eyes out, crying for a long time, stuffed my face with chocolate. I was just like cookies and chocolate. And I just let myself go. The following day is when, okay, put your thinking cap on. And my little girl said, well, let's go back and let's see like what answers were wrong. And we went back and we looked at it and we said, wait a minute, our answers are correct. Now, the test was being corrected by AI. So AI is not a person. And because of that, AI dinged me for punctuation, spelling. And so that is part of the reason why we fail. And then my little girl was like, I knew it. I knew we had all the answers right. And we did. We had most of those answers correct. And it was just a technicality of it. So we did start to feel better. We went into a little bit of a panic, but we started to feel better. And I just started to feel like, okay, I'm okay. Now, every now and again, Monica, the anxiety was creeping in as I'm getting closer to retaking this exam. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I can even start to feel my heart racing. My hands are starting to sweat. And I'm I'm reminding myself, you did pass it. You just didn't pass it. Like you didn't pass the grade, but you had all the correct answers. So calm down and know that those answers were correct. And since you're going to take it again, even if the wording is slightly different or whatever, you already had the answers. Now it's going to require for you to just really be patient, read each question carefully, even though we may be in our heads and say, oh, I know this answer. It's like read it carefully, then go back and look at each question again. Because the first time when I took the test, I was so sure of my answers. I didn't bother even going back to check. I was just like, "Boop, submit." And that was that.
Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing this and for letting so many people witness your growth and what amazing tools you were using to go through that. And I'm really impressed about how you handled this situation and also about sharing this here so authentically and openly. Thank you for that because I'm sure so many people can learn from that. You shared now with me because we worked already on your fear of exam. Like you had a lot of fear around exams, a lot of fear of not being enough, not being smart enough, and you did it. You did the exam, and you failed, and you still didn't go back to that. You're not smart enough. You're not intelligent enough.
Mm.
You just proved to yourself and everyone else that you're over that. And
Yes.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And as a extra gift, you found out that you actually didn't fail, meaning you didn't have the answers wrong. It was just that you put maybe um, a little wrong punctuation, which the AI couldn't differentiate, but you had the answers. The content was correct. You maybe spelled it different. So, yeah, you didn't fail, but at the first moment you thought you failed. And
Yes.
still you didn't fall back into the trap.
No, I didn't. And to your point, I have to say what our coaching session did was really instill confidence in me because initially taking exam, I didn't have the confidence, which I can now look back on it and say, well, if I lacked the confidence, that attitude would go with me during the exam and sabotage me and be like, yep, nope, you don't know this answer. I would second guess myself constantly. So I would put down an answer and then go back and erase it and go, no, this is the wrong answer. So the level of confidence within which I stepped up to this exam was surreal. It was amazing. And hence why I got so, even if I could even say that, full of myself that I said, yep, I know this is good. We're just going to submit it without even going back and checking it. Because if I had gone back and checked it, I would have seen spelling errors, I would have seen punctuation errors, and I would have removed them. But I was so certain that I've got this in the bag, which was great.
Yes.
But like you said, and then afterwards it was like, okay, then I did that little dip. But again, like with all the tools that you gave me, because even after I had my temper tantrum, it's like the next day I went into this was my happy place, finding my happy place. And then from there, I was able to make decisions and choices to lead me back on track to like, okay, speak to somebody, ask someone, contact someone and ask them, hey, how to go about being able to pass the exam, but also if somebody would look at it because actually my answers were correct. So even in that moment, Monica, I had a voice. Like before, that wasn't there. That voice, number one, was very harsh and critical towards me. But that voice also had silenced me. Like I would have never had the courage to like contact someone and say, hey, time out. Can somebody explain this to me? I wouldn't have had that courage. I would have just imploded on myself. I would have been like, this is all your fault. You're not capable, blah, blah, blah. And there was something else that you had said in one of our coaching sessions a long time ago. And I know you probably say this also to your other clients, but you said something to the effect, and forgive me for not having the exact quote, but you're like, failing is not failing. Failing is a step towards success. It just means try again. Just do it. Now that you have even more information, you can do it even better. So it's like, oh, you failed? Great. It's okay. Because now that means, okay, you're probably missing some information. Let's go back and find out what that information is. So I have to say it took a minute for all of this to kind of like kind of like fall into place because the even though the default we had like removed some of the default thinking, there was still a lingering piece of like, maybe I was being tested. I don't know, possibly. But it was like, are you sure? Are you really confident in yourself? Do you know that you're really intelligent? I'm like, without a question, I know this. Yes. I want it.
Wow. Uh-huh. Mhm. That's really so beautiful to see you now even explaining what you went through and how you were tested, but you drove. Yes, I am confident. No, I don't believe this voice. It's not here anymore. And I will see what can I do next. So still, well, maybe I didn't have the success like I wanted to, but I didn't fail either because there is no failure, just feedback. So
Yes.
now, what's next? And you were a little bit reading my mind here again because I was about to ask you, what did you learn? Which you already said so much, but what opportunity did you have to learn, and what did you learn what you couldn't have learned when you didn't have this experience?
Mm. So, oh, that's a beautiful question. Actually, questions, those are beautiful questions. So, I learned more about me than I did about my capability. And what that means is I'm much more aware now of the stories that I'm about to create. And when I was having my moment there and I was upset, and the next day, I could have easily slipped back into how I was because that is familiar. But I pushed myself to, and you've always said that the mind loves what's familiar and not what's unfamiliar. But you did say to me, I remember this very vividly, and I can still hear it. You need to make the unfamiliar familiar. So in that moment, after the whole tantrum, I started to say to myself, well, how do I make the this unfamiliar feeling familiar? And it was doing that piece that allowed me to then say, you know what? you can also reach out to someone and speak to an individual about what transpired, what happened, and about how you're feeling. And in those moments, it was like step by step, things were kind of like falling into place for me and just being like, okay, we failed, but we really didn't fail. And it was that languaging, that turn of like, instead of saying, "Ugh, your failure, such a loser you are." I mean, my God, like anybody can answer this. It's like, wow, you haven't got a brain. You're like totally clueless. And those words would get to me and then make me feel, of course, terrible, and it would just perpetuate the same thing. But this time around, I knew once I checked, the answers were correct and it was just punctuation. And it was just me just having or being much more vigilant when I read the questions instead of jumping to the conclusion. My best analogy for that, Monica, would be, when you're in a conversation with someone and you're listening to them and you already start to formulate in your head what you're going to say without allowing them to say everything they need to, and then you can respond to them. But it's almost like, oh, I already know that. I already know this question. Boom, I put in the answer. But instead I should have gone back and said, yeah, I know this question, let me just double check and make sure I'm not missing anything, instead of like just glancing over, bypassing it. So it it taught me to do a little bit more looking inwardly, and then also checking myself constantly on like, okay, what story are you now telling yourself? Like, well, what's happening here? What is going on? And catching it in that moment before the story actually sweeps me into this vortex of like negativity or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. That's brilliant. Brilliant and congratulations for all of that amazing achievement. I mean, it's such a it's such a big achievement, way greater than you would have just passed this exam.
Yes. Yes. Because I wouldn't have been able, number one, also to see the change within me. Because I wouldn't have noticed that. That is so subtle. There's no way I would have been able to like even notice it.
Mm. So what I hear you say is because of this event that happened, that of course at the beginning was shocking, didn't like the outcome. But now afterwards, you have had so many more insights and lessons and treasure that you wouldn't have when you wouldn't have experienced it that way.
Absolutely.
So it was not a failure, maybe, but it was a huge win, right?
Huge,
And a
huge.
good success.
Yeah. It was a huge success. It didn't look like a huge success, but yeah, I have to say it was absolutely a huge success. And to add like the cherry on top of this beautiful cake here that your recipe is awesome. Marissa's recipe is just awesome. We add the little cherry, which is um, the the knowing, I have to say, or the understanding, the inner understandings rather, of how I think and how my thoughts create my reality. And
Mm.
so that was huge to me. I'm actually grateful I failed, which is something I would have never ever said before. It's like, oh no, there's no gratitude for failing. But in this instance, the gratitude for failing and the cherry on top of the cake is the ability for me to even fine tune my practice and become a better listener, a better receiver of what's coming towards me, and um, a better understanding also of like RTT and its functions. So this actually forced me, even though I knew the answers were correct, it forced me also to go back and just review carefully certain things, take down even more notes. And even though it seemed like it was redundant, it felt like, no, repetition is my friend in this case, and repetition will make me a master at this. So, yeah, that was
Mm.
important.
Yeah. So by experiencing that, you went back, you dove even deeper into the topic, you reviewed a lot of things, you just dived back into that. And how will this benefit you from now on in what your goal is?
Mhm. Oh my goodness. This will definitely put me on a trajectory of just excellence. And it makes me feel, even just saying the word excellence, it gives me pride. I feel like my posture is just like, yes, of course we're talking excellence. But it's also, that excellence to me will translate into like being able to give clients what they're seeking and needing, and really being present, um, much like what you're doing. And so, yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah, very much like what you're doing, and just being able to be, become it, be it with ease. And so I'm happy about that. And that as I'm saying this to you, I'm also thinking about, because I'm going to take the test in 2 days. I said I need to just sit calmly and just know I do know the answers. And I guess it's really weird because this creeping thought just came in just now, Monica, that said, better watch out. Yeah, you didn't know the answers, but you could. I don't know where that came from. Um,
Okay. Do you want to work on that?
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this voice, say again, what did it say?
It said to me, "Oh, yes, you did know the answers, but you better watch out. You think you may pass it, but there is a possibility you could fail again." So yeah,
Mhm. Whose voice is it?
I want to say it's my voice.
Mhm. How do you experience it? Is it far away? Is it close? Is it loud? Is it strong?
It's not strong. It was very quiet, but loud enough for me to like notice it. It was quiet voice, kind of like, when somebody would say, "Oh, just be careful, you just want to just settle yourself down, okay? Because you might fail. And let's just keep that in mind." So, yeah, it was talking like that. That's how it creeped in.
Mhm. How does this make you feel?
Well, not good. Because in when I was speaking it to you, I could already feel my heart start to like kind of like start to race a little bit. And yeah, even my hands are becoming a little bit sweaty as I'm saying this
Okay.
to you. Yeah.
So your heartbeat races, your hands becoming sweaty. What's the thought that you think to that feeling and the sensation of the heartbeat?
So the thought is, yes, there is a possibility, but we don't want to even entertain the possibility of not passing, because how would that be possible? Um, so then the heart racing feels like almost like, okay, yeah, I'm recognizing that that could be a possibility. How? I guess in this moment, I'm asking myself, how can we make it okay? Like, this is not, uh, it's not like I'm going to die. So it's not life and death. So how do you make this, how do I make myself okay with, yeah, sure, I might fail. It's not the desired outcome. Hopefully, it's not the outcome, but we'll be okay because the alternative is, again, you take the exam. I will have to pay for it if I do take it a third time. And that's the other thing. I think that pressure being like, okay, this is going to cost me money. I don't want to do this. Um, yeah,
But you could.
yeah.
Okay, so worst case scenario here, you fail. Well, then you do it again. And if you, when you take now the experience you had, you failed and you had a lot of treasure, a lot of insights, a lot of wisdom, a lot of success out of this failure. You want to say this? Out of this failing. Well, maybe if you fail, which we don't think and want, but it could be, then maybe there's another treasure for you waiting. And then
Hmm,
you do it again.
okay. Did not think about that.
So, and yeah, that's the worst case scenario, which is just one story out of uncountable stories that are possible. So there is this one story you could fail, yes. There is another story you will pass with 100%. And there are many, many, many stories in between. So there is this voice coming in telling you, well, be careful, you could fail. Now you know even the worst case scenario is not very comfortable, not the one you would choose, but you can handle it. How do you feel about the voice?
I wish I didn't have that voice creep in like it did. But I'm kind of glad it did while you and I are doing this because I'm not so sure how I would have handled it during the exam. Because that's where, if it kicks in like that, then there's doubt. And the doubt usually sabotages me because the doubt will go back.
Yes, but just let's stay with what is.
Okay.
Right now, there was just a voice, just a
Yes.
voice.
Yes.
Everything else is a story about the voice.
Yes.
The thoughts are a story about the voice, which could cause thoughts, which could do that. But that's at the moment not the fact. That's another story. But just the voice is just a voice. And when you now listen to the voice, did it change? Is it the same?
Mm, no.
How did
Mm-mm.
it change?
Um, so as you were speaking, it I don't know, it almost like went silent.
Okay. So it came, it
Mm,
was there, and
mhm.
now it's silent.
It's not
Next
there.
next time when the voice comes or you hear it, it will be probably the same. It comes and it goes, like every thought, like every
Like,
feeling.
yes. Yes.
The problem we make out of whatever happens, every thought and every feeling is the story we attach to whatever is. Meaning, when we have a certain feeling and we make a story, oh, this is because, yes, I know, and now I know it will get better, and then I get headache, and then I will feel sick, and whatever it is. Yes, if we tell this story to ourselves, it will be like that. But at the moment, it was just a feeling. When the voice comes in, it was just a voice until you say, well, the voice means that I have self thoughts that could be. It's a story. It's another thought you're making, you're attaching on the voice. But the voice is just a voice.
Mm, yes, I that resonates. And I tell you what, in this moment, it sunk in because the minute you said, yeah, it's a thought, it comes in, but it comes in and then it just disappears. So it's, yeah, you know what, Monica, in this moment, I'm feeling that, me, I, and I began to start to attach or go back to those old feelings. That's why my hands became sweaty and my heart started racing because it was like, I see now. It's the story that, okay, whenever we take exams, we get nervous. We failed in the past, which has shown that we doubt ourselves, or myself, I should say. I doubt myself. And the story behind that is like, yep, this is not comfortable. This puts me back into that story of not feeling good about myself. And yeah, I see now what she just did. Thank you. That was brilliant. Thank you. Because I was about to start to attach uh, the feelings to that would have become the story again. Yes.
So, to reflect this back, what you just said to me is you now understand that the voice was just a thought, like a cloud which just passes by. And your default would be like every human being, we always, when there is a thought, when there is a feeling, when there is something, our mind, wants to make something out of it, explain it, and see what's about, why is it here? And as soon as we open this door, we go into that and we become the thought, the feeling. And we attach so many things by building stories, and one story leads to the other. And especially when we had or have old painful programs deep within us. And so important, even when we could liberate ourselves from that, it's so easy to get triggered. And then in the moment of being insecure, falling into the old habit. Because most of us, we lived the old program for decades. And then we have maybe a time, some weeks, months, maybe years also, where we have liberated ourselves. But if there's a trigger, we have to be aware
Mm.
to not fall into that. How do we fall into that? By attaching mistakenly the old thought patterns, the old sequence of feeling not good enough, not smart enough, because this and because that happened, all the old stories again to just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were speaking, uh, towards the end there, what came through was those are old stories. They're old. Whatever happened to me in the past, that's no longer me. Now, yes, my little girl lives inside of me, but she's not me anymore. That's no longer me. That was then. And this new person here, I can take that little girl along with me and say, I understand your hurt and your pain, but let me show you as the older version of you what we're absolutely capable of. And this will reflect back on you to show you that this story that you created about yourself not being intelligent was a product of just where you were and feeling as a child that I didn't have a voice. And that child was so impressionable. And what I want her to understand in this moment is that those impressions weighed heavily on such a little mind. And that's a lot to deal with. But as the adult that I'm not that impressionable, I do know what I'm capable of. And that's where I can see, okay, I'm grateful for her experiences, but that's not going to be my experience anymore as an adult. So taking
That's
that
so
choice.
important. Thank you for saying this because that's such a key lesson. When we take the old programs in our present life, and these programs are from when we were, for example, 8 years old, and we bring it into our adult life, if we act through that program, we act as an 8-year-old child. And we think the same patterns, thought patterns as this child, or even more, because we had then a lot of time to practice this. So this neural pathway got really, really strong and deep. At the
Seriously.
moment when we stop, when what you did, and understand, oh, wait a minute. Yes, well, there's a voice, and it would have affected me back then. But now
Mm.
I'm a different person. I'm a different person to that version when I was 8 years old or however old you were. And I'm a different person to when I was still run and controlled by this program than now, because I've changed. I've upgraded my life. I'm updated now to what I really am. And what I really am is me without this whole program. Meaning, you, couple of years ago, or maybe month, hearing that voice, you would react like that.
Yes.
You now, voice comes in, you know, yes, I would have reacted like that. But now I
Yes.
don't, because that's not me anymore.
Yes. Thank you for that. Yes. Um, yes. Now I feel, you know what? I I welcome the voice and I'll escort it out. I'll just welcome it and I'm not going to fight it because I feel like fighting it would be a waste of energy. And, maybe I'm telling myself a story about this, but fighting it, I feel would give it more energy and power. And in this moment, as you stated that last sentence, it felt like allow it to come like a cloud, like a passing cloud. And it's like, okay, you can acknowledge, like, we don't start berating the cloud when it's passing. So I'm not going to berate this thought. I will acknowledge it, but I will also allow it to just be like you said, that because I do feel that's in my past. And I can tell my little girl, yeah, this was part of you. And maybe in this moment when we take our exam too on Thursday, I'm thinking maybe she and I can just say, okay, I can tell my little one, you can let go of this thought also. You can let go of it because it made us feel lesser than. It made us feel really bad. And I think this might be an opportunity for the little girl in me to have the experience of seeing us get a really good score and do extremely well to, and I wouldn't say erase what happened in the past, but to allow her to say, okay, you know what? In the past, now I can understand. I was so young and I took everything to heart. And, I said things to myself and created stories around there because that's what children also do. And we kind of cling on to it and start believing it. And in this moment, as I'm speaking to you, I can even recall Marissa saying, "We make our beliefs until our beliefs make us." That's the one. So we make our beliefs, and then the beliefs then us. And so I was already in this place where the belief made me. Like the belief was, "You're not smart. You're not intelligent. You're not capable. You cannot comprehend. You're terrible at taking exams." And so on and so forth. And the list just went on and on and on. But in this moment, I get this sense of like, yeah. So we recognize the story, we're aware of the story. And this version of me, the adult version of me, has not had experiences where I've had to take exams and pass them. So taking this exam and failing it was brilliant. Oh my gosh, now I'm like saying this was a great gift because it was like, okay, let's make sure that you've really let go of this belief. Like, let's make sure that you are no longer thinking you're not smart enough, you can't do it. And it did. It helped me. And the level of confidence, like I said in the beginning, I was just very, very confident. So, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, what I was doing, I was just reflecting back what you said to me, which you discovered by observing your thoughts, by observing what's going on, by taking the time to step back. And you said something really interesting also and very important. And what this is that it doesn't make sense to fight with the voice, to push it away. And it's so important because what happened, and we often mistakenly do this, a thought or a feeling comes in, we want to make it away, we push it away by thinking we don't want to feel it or think that. And by doing that, we give it energy. By doing that, we actually open the door and are identified with it, and we are already on it, in it. So instead of watching the cloud going by or watching the train going by, when we start to fight it, we step on the train and we're going with it.
And that has been my story. That's exactly correct. Yes.
Yeah, and we all do that. So we all do that. It's not only you did it, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just how our mind works. And the second very interesting thing you said is like Marissa says, first we create our beliefs when we are children, when we create this belief and when it are born, this belief, and then this belief turns around and rules our life. It's always the case. It's always, and it stays there until we put it up to the surface. We face it. We interrupt it, and then it can disappear. And we have to process it. So again, that's why fighting also doesn't help, because it's just within this 5% of the conscious mind. But the underlying 95% of the subconscious are way stronger. So it doesn't make sense to fight it within our thinking because we are run by the deeper level. So that's something really, really important, which you say there, acceptance, becoming aware first, then accepting it. That's the way out. And that's the hardest way because we always think we need to do something about that. We have to fight it. We have to push it away. We have to find a medicine for it. But the only medicine that works is just acceptance. Well, yes, I hear you, but I don't listen to you.
Yes. 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 I love that. Yes. Yeah. Awareness and acceptance. Yes. I'm fully on board with you about that. And the only reason why I was able to make that statement about not giving it energy, again, it's going back to many of the coaching sessions you and I have had where it's that level of self-awareness. Like you are recognizing, okay, yeah, I remember this program. Yeah. And instead of like trying to be like, okay, well, I need to really work on erasing it. And it just came really naturally. Like when I stated to you, I'm not fighting. I, I don't want to put energy towards fighting this because it has been my experience in the past where I have fought so many things and I've gotten stuck into whatever that issue was and lost and gone down the rabbit hole and been lost in darkness and whatnot. So now it's like, okay, I'm very mindful of my own energy and just bringing a lot of awareness to, oh, do I want to spend time doing this? And asking myself questions like, will this benefit me? Because the minute I understand it's not going to benefit me, out you go. I'm done with you. Thank you very much, but no thank you.
Exactly. Perfect. And how can you do this? How can you even get the choice of, do I want it or not? How, I mean, so many people, they don't even come to that point where they can choose, do I want to listen to the story or not? So how do you do that? How do you get the choice?
For me, um, so having these stories is good to know about, but not to be kept in that narrative. So I keep the stories there to as a reminder of like, hey, you know what? This is not something we really want to do. We've had that experience. And I know you've heard this saying before. I've got the t-shirt, done that, been there, got the t-shirt, I'm done. So moving on. Um, but it's also for me, it's really being in touch and in tune with my feelings and emotions. So if I'm feeling bad, why will I want to continue to feel bad? And that's my question. It's like, if I'm feeling depressed or sad or anxious in that moment, I'm like, okay, what's going on? What is the thought behind the anxiety? What's the thought behind the depression? And a lot of the times it'll come forward. It'll say, oh, well, you're anxious because you're somewhere inside of you, you're feeling unworthy. Or, like in my case with the test, is yeah, there's this lingering possibility that you're not feeling as smart as you want to be. And so I'm like, but is that really true? Then I ask myself the question, is there any truth to any of those statements or those thoughts? Once I recognize, like, okay, that's not truth, or that's part of an old story, old programming running, then in that moment, I realize you have a choice. We can continue down this thread, or we can try something else. Now,
And
yeah,
what is it then what you do? So you find yourself depressed. You go and investigate what's the thought that causes that feeling. You find the thought, and what do you do next when you
with the
choose
thought.
not to go with that? Mhm.
Yes. And I choose, and it's very clear because it's like, okay, I can see that the thought has created this emotion. And I can see that emotion will continue to make me feel bad, which means that either I will not take action. In many cases, I'll sabotage myself, I'll procrastinate, I'll do things that will corroborate and collaborate with that thought pattern.
Mhm.
So in that moment, I feel like, you know, what if I had another thought? Is there, number one, another thought? But what if I had another thought? And I say to myself, okay, well, if I'm not feeling intelligent, let's go with what's the opposite of not feeling intelligent, which would be I am intelligent. And then that pushes me to think, what do I need to access that thought? What is it that I need to do in terms of accessing that thought? And that gets me on a point of like, well, let's see, have there been examples as to where you've been intelligent? Bring those forward. And if there hasn't been any example, I go on the adventure of like, well, then let's create something. Let's create something completely different because the same old is not serving me. So I need to do something that is benefiting me and serving me. Look, I'm like everybody else. And I'm sure everybody can relate, Monica. When you're depressed and tired, living in that is like, ugh. It's just, it's not creative. It's just, and it actually can make you really physically ill. So I love being active. I love being well in my skin. I love feeling good. I love those things. So I bring maybe those things in and say, what would make me feel better? And that's when maybe choices would present themselves.
Exactly. Yes. So when the thought comes up, I'm not intelligent enough, or I'm not as intelligent as I want to be, you change the thought. You're looking until you find a thought that you can take on. And you're looking for things that can even prove the new thought. And if you don't find, you just go on and go in that direction until you can really mm, identify with this new thought. But the first point, the number one step you have to do, and you do, is to change the thought. Because every thought creates a feeling, and every feeling creates the action, and the action, well, creates our life. So if we think sad thoughts, we will feel sad. If we think happy thoughts, we will feel happy. That's simple. Not easy, but simple.
Yes.
So amazing. You gave, for everyone who is watching that, a brilliant, amazing, and detailed step-by-step method of how to get out of any negative spiral and loop you have in your thought. Okay, and to my previous question, how do you do that to have the choice? Is, you said it, you just go inside. And how can you go inside? Well, but just taking a space. Meaning, when we are in patterns, we do automatically. When we are in patterns, these can be habits, these can be thought patterns. We do it automatically without thinking. We eat the stuff we used to, we get up, we do the same things, we drive always the same road to our work, whatever it is, so we don't have to think about it. How do we stop a pattern? How do we change? We take space. So before we do, we create space, and this can be a second to get the distance, and there's the choice. And there is where we can even create the distance to the thoughts, to the feeling, to whatever it is, so that we have the choice.
Mm.
Because a lot of people are in that. A lot of people are not even aware that they have a voice in their head that is telling them. So how do they get the aware? Well, be still, take your time, observe. Like you said it so brilliantly, but you are just like 100 steps ahead. So
I love I love the way that you explain the mechanics of it because you're absolutely right. Someone, may look at this and say, yeah, but I don't know how you get from point A to point C. Like it doesn't make sense. B is in the middle and you never talked even about B. So how do you get from this point to that point? Yeah, with everything that you just mentioned, Monica, and going deeper into the processes of it, which I like to look at like the mechanical steps to take. It really, really reminded me also that yes, even I am unaware of patterns. Now, I've done enough sessions also on my own, but one thing I've come to understand and even look further deeper into myself is like my I'm practicing right now to recognize certain patterns. That said, that is not an easy feat, but this is why I have you as my coach. And this is why you have certain professionals on the other side that can actually point these things in such a manner that I can see it. You're not giving me the answers, but you're phrasing in certain words and asking certain questions in such a way that forces me, and I wouldn't say even forces me, it's actually an invitation to be able to look deeper into, hmm, do you realize what you just said? That. And do you see that this thought is leading to the, well, you never say leading to this, but how does this thought make you feel? And then what do? And so on and so forth. So it's like that whole thing. So yeah, I have to say to most viewers, if you're if you don't have like a lot of self-awareness, that step is like a monumental step because that taking that distance that you mentioned, which is silence, being silent and sitting with it. Um, I know that in the beginning of my practice, when I would sit with things, I'm like, okay, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I would sit there and be like, I just don't get this. I'm like, I'm totally lost. Like I'm sitting with the feelings, I'm sitting with the emotions and realizing, okay, nothing is happening and I'm expecting for something to happen, but I can't go any further because maybe there's just the question that I'm not asking me that will bring stuff forward. So yeah, I believe really like having a coach, a therapist coach, is brilliant because there are those parts of us that they can bring out. And then I get to see and notice and then be like, oh, okay, you know what? That part of me doesn't serve me. I need to let that go. Oh, yes, I can develop this me, so many tools that you've given me that have allowed me, to get into that space of more like self awareness. Because in the past, to tell you the truth, honestly, I would have gone back into that thought pattern and I would have been that critical voice would have once again taken center stage and blasted me. And I would have been right back into like, okay, we're not doing this. And more than likely, I would have like quit the program, not even decided, to continue because that was my patterning. That would have been my patterning. It was like, you know what? We're not going to pass this. Just quit. Move on to the next. And let's just hope we'll do better. And then quit. But never looking back at like, hey, let's stop a moment and take a look at this. So and just go through it and go through those processes to
Mm. Yeah,
this.
thank you. Yes. Well, that's true. Every coach needs a coach because we are within the pattern. We are the fish in the water. We don't see the water. And we are in the filter and work through the filter. So it's very helpful to have someone just reflecting back of what we say, what we do, what we think. And this is what you do, it becomes then natural for us to not believe everything we think, to just challenge the thoughts and to not go with them. So this is what you are at already. You just like, I'm sitting there, I'm just reflecting back, or I ask you questions, but you're coaching yourself already. so that's amazing. That's really good. So both it's a balance between, well, first of all, we start off. It's nice to have someone guiding us, and then we can do it more and more alone. And now coming back to the voice in your head one more time, I wanted to ask you, what what you experience now? Is there a voice?
Not right now, no.
No.
But as a matter of fact, I could mention the exam. No voice.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
And what are you doing next time when there comes in a voice telling you, you better don't do the exam, you will fail?
Mm. I'll acknowledge it and I will allow it to just pass because it will pass. I will acknowledge it, but I cannot give it any more energy, any more thought. And I will just focus on the task at hand and just like be like, yeah.
So you don't give it any energy. And where do you give the energy? What are you doing with this energy you have then left over, which you don't waste for this voice?
Yes, I'm not going to waste it on the voice, which means I can give it to whatever I am focused on much more.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, today is Tuesday.
Yes.
In 2 days, you are going to take the exam. How do you feel about it?
I'm like, bring it with them. I'm excited. I'm excited actually about it. And And I'll definitely, you'll be the first to know as soon as I pass it, I take it. I'll send you my scores and everything. Actually looking forward to it. I feel in this moment before our coaching session, there was a tiny fraction of like hesitation, kind of like a bit of a reservation about what may happen on Thursday. But after this, I'm good. I'm good to go.
Amazing. So I'm very excited for you, and I think everyone who's watching this very curious. So maybe you want to let these people know in the comment how brilliant you did.
I will.
And yeah, so I can't wait to hear from you. I'm sure whatever you will experience, it will be amazing. Okay. Can't wait to see you again and talk to you again, Olivia. Thank you for being here again and for sharing all your brilliant wisdom and knowledge and growth. And see you next time.
And next time, thank you for your guidance, Monica.
Bye, everyone.